Morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Fertility Women. We have got a super exciting one lined up for you all today. We have a new guest host that's going to be joining us, which I'm really excited to share with you all. And then we have got the follow-on from her previous episode where we were joined by Kirsten from Straight Up Infertility, and she is bringing a very special lady with her today, which is the surrogate of her son, Spencer. So, girls, I'm so excited for this week's show. I literally cannot contain my excitement. How are you girls? Are you as excited as I am?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, I would say, obviously, we've heard loads of people's stories and everyone's amazing. But Kirsten's really did touch me that day. I was like, it was like one that really, even afterwards, I was a bit like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. It was just, it felt like it was just went on forever, but she just maintained hope. And yeah, so I'm really excited to hear about their relationship and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I just from like what we got last time, she said all these wonderful things about Leigha, and it just sounds like that baby boy is just so lucky to have like these women in his life. And it was so moving, wasn't it? And the journey as well that like Kirsten had gone through before. I'm really excited to sort of like capture the magic of like their whole relationship in today's show. I cannot wait. We've also got Katie, who's going to be joining us today. So anyone on here who follows my Instagram at all, I did an interview with Katie a little while ago and she's had a hell of a journey. It's like a fertility journey. It's been a lot, like 8 embryo transfers. That is absolutely wow. Like anyone who's been through an embryo transfer like 8 times, like that is the 2-week wait 8 times. I mean, that is enough, right?
Yeah. What is that, like 4 months of 2-week waits? Oh my, that sounds
wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Because when you talk about a 2-week wait and you try and explain it to somebody that hasn't like been through fertility treatment, you don't really get it. And it's like when it's that 2 weeks, like you're like pregnant until proven otherwise, aren't you? It's that, and it's that every day feels like a month because you're over analyzing everything about your body all day, every day, and it's that whole cycle of when you're trying for a baby. Like each month you like try for a baby, and then you have like to wait to find out if you're pregnant, and you go through those emotions every day, multiple times, don't you? During that 2-week wait, well, I did anyway. It was just it was really intense.
You're kind of walking on eggshells all the time because it's like, is this good for my body? Is this not good for my body? Do I act normal? Do I treat my body differently to encourage any?
I feel exhausted talking about it. Like it's so tiring, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I need to go and meditate now, girls. All right, I'm thinking a little bit. Let Katie on because she can come on and give us a little introduction herself. I love how she talks. I love how passionate she is about making a difference to the fertility community. Katie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on today. Just give us a little bit of a brief overview for anyone that hasn't seen like our interview before and that doesn't know anything about you. Tell us a little bit about you and your fertility journey.
So my journey started back in 2013, really. That's when I started my treatment at Guy's Hospital in London and ended up actually having 8 embryos transferred between 2014 and 2016. I didn't get a positive pregnancy test, unfortunately, until embryo number 8. And then we got pregnant with my daughter, who is now 4.5. And obviously I heard you in the introduction about the 2-week wait, that equates to sort of 4 months. That is, that is horrific in itself, those waiting of 2 weeks and what you can and can't do. But yeah, I just had back-to-back transfers literally for unexplained infertility and unexplained implantation failure during that time. But at that time I couldn't give up hope. I said that to Jade during our live about a few weeks ago, what it was. But I had 7 embryos from my first IVF cycle, and I wanted to use all of them. And even on one attempt, we had 2 put back, but was never successful using those 7. So during our second egg collection, obviously we then created 5 more viable embryos, and not to embryo number 8 that I actually got a positive pregnancy test. And when I think about it now, and obviously we discussed, our fertility journeys, it does seem mad, but at the time, you know, I was just going through the motions. You know, I didn't really think about it and what that meant, and how many times I tried. You know, I just was mindset, you know, I want to just everything I could possibly do in my power to try and have a family. If I can't have a family, I can't have a family, but I know that I've given it my all.
Hindsight is a beautiful thing, isn't it? Like when you look back and you're like, wow, like I did that, and like,
yeah. And then to explain, you know, to my children, obviously when they're older, obviously, you know, every baby is precious, every child is precious, but just to show, you know, I, you know, did all of this to be able to get you, because obviously I didn't want to try and give up. I wanted to show that I did everything in my, if I couldn't have had children, then I in my head, I was like, I've tried everything I possibly could, you know, but to be able to explain to those little people why they're extra special. And then, yeah, obviously that, you know, I had my daughter, and then we tried again when she was 18 months old, and unfortunately had two miscarriages as a result of those transfers, which was a new experience for myself. I'd never experienced that before. You know, there's one thing having a failed transfer, but to then be pregnant and not be pregnant, you know, that was a new experience for me. And then it was transfer number 10 that obviously then we had our son Jax, who's now 14 months. So yeah, it's a long haul, but do you know what? I don't regret any of it. I'll do it all again tomorrow. And to be able to get my story out there and help others and support people, and just to say, you know, if you can, keep trying, but if you can't, that's okay as well, because, you know, I
just feel like there's so much you're going to bring to the panel. So like you're going to come on, aren't you, for the next couple of weeks? You're going to have like 1 week on, 1 week off, come on and bring like your advice and your support to everyone in the community. And I'm so excited for that. And I know how like excited you were to be involved in this call, because you said that you'd looked into surrogacy and stuff at one point yourself, hadn't you? So
we was advised. Before we got pregnant with my daughter, Lanesra, they advised us to have a couple of more transfers and then look at surrogacy. So, you know, I at that particular time back in, I think this was 2015 at this point, I had sort of ruled surrogacy out because, you know, the law behind it in the UK, and, you know, it's not legally binding and all of that, and it's agreement, you know, and of course now there's agencies and it's a lot more widely spoken about. And I feel like, you know, the law hasn't changed. I feel like everything's more on your side than it was back then, you know, 6 years ago. I felt like a lot more people have gone through that experience now. But, you know, I'm a childcare lawyer, and, you know, that's what I do on a day-to-day basis, you know, work with families and their children and so on. So at that particular time, you know, I just didn't feel that the law was particularly on my side to kind of give my trust in someone to carry my child. I think that was probably a bit of a naivety on my part. But, I think I'd ruled that out at that stage.
While we're talking about that, I'm going to bring Kirsten in, because I think that this is a conversation that you two will be able to mutually like share. Are you there? Can we hear you?
Hi, everyone.
I just wanted to jump you in straight there. Sorry that I didn't really get, there was no real introduction, but I know anybody who watches our show will know exactly all about your journey and what a special show that you did with us a few weeks ago now. And I just think it's really, because I can't really speak in terms of, apart from when I had my first round of IVF, when I was referred and they said, you know, have to have IVF, and I thought it meant that I was going to be having, like, someone else is going to be having my baby. That's the and at the time I was really arrogant and really ignorant. I was like, I don't need to do that. I'm not one of those people. I don't need to do that. And I've said that throughout my journey. It was sheer ignorance. I didn't understand infertility. Come to think of it, I didn't even understand how to get pregnant properly, which is probably why it's bloody long in the first place. You know,
is that what the problem's been all along?
Yeah, you're not doing it right.
Not meant to be here, is there? And I appreciate Valeria's backstage, probably a bit too early for all of this crudeness. But the trust, that has got to be a big deal, right? Like, Kirsten, was that like how did you navigate that?
Yes, absolutely. Look, we met with a few surrogacy agencies, and we ended up going with this boutique agency called Rocky Mountain. And when I met with Tess, the owner of the agency, like, straight away, it just felt like a chat with an old friend. Like, she just felt so just genuine and warm and hands-on. And I think that definitely helped to start with, because some of the agencies we met with, they were all bells and whistles and, you know, quite slick and, you know, all fantastic agencies, but it felt a bit like a business. Whereas with Tess, it felt like, you know, sort of friend trying to help you. And so that was the first step. And then Tess straight away said, look, I've got this woman in mind who's done surrogacy before. And, you know, she's now a friend of mine, and I think that she would just be a perfect fit for you guys. And I suppose, firstly, knowing that Leigha had done surrogacy before, that sort of gave a level of trust as well. And with Tess's recommendation, we, you know, that basically that night we met with Leigha and Josh over Skype. And I don't know, just straight away, we just had this instant rapport. Like, just straight away, it all just felt comfortable. We were all having a lot of laughs, and I just felt like the trust was there straight away. I can't explain it. It's just, you know, when you meet someone for the first time, you just have that gut feel that, oh, this person is genuine and special, and this is just meant to be. And that's how it felt.
So what's the first things you look for with a clinic? Like if because I wouldn't know, for anyone that's watching this that is not have a clue where to start, what are there? Because you said about bells and whistles, I wouldn't have a clue about any of them.
So with some of the agencies that we met with, like straight away it was sharing the screen, and they had the PowerPoint, and they were like, this is, you know, a Gantt chart of the timeline, and this is, you know, how we match this. And it just felt, I don't know, it just felt a bit like a business. Whereas again, with Rocky Mountain, it was, I don't know, it was just like, you know, I know this woman and she's done it before, and, you know, there's, yeah, I just think that you guys would match really well. So, I mean, there's a whole process obviously involved with surrogacy. So the first step is, you know, meeting with potential surrogates. And then if you do feel that there's a rapport and a good match and you agree with that, well, firstly, we, you know, contacted Tess and said, oh, we'd love to match with Leigha if she's interested. Now, Leigha could have turned around and said, oh, no, I'm not interested. So obviously it's got to be a two-way, you know, relationship. So we both had that great rapport. And then you actually meet with a lawyer, a fertility lawyer. And given that it's commercial surrogacy in the US, you have a contract drawn up. And I mean, this contract's like War and Peace, like everything you can imagine is in there. But we basically went with sort of the recommended standard contract, and it was the same one that Leigha had with the previous family that she was a surrogate for as well. And yeah, once you have the contract drawn up and you all sign it, you then also you know, matched with a fertility clinic. So we went with Utah Fertility Center and met with Dr. Russell's book there. And yeah, then once the contract's all signed and you've met with a clinic, then Leigha then did all her sort of medical screenings and tests, just like, you know, we all do with IVF, the same tests. And there is also a psychological evaluation as well, which, you know, Leigha and Josh did, and also myself and my husband Ryan did as well. And that's more, I suppose, just kind of talking through like what to expect with surrogacy, and, you know, talking through, you know, any emotional feelings you might have about it, because obviously, like we've said, there's a level of trust. There's also perhaps sometimes, you know, women can feel jealous of the surrogate. So, you know, you talk through all those different emotions as well. And then the counsellor, psychologist actually does like an evaluation report on both parties. And
I remember,
you know,
saying this before, you all have to have like the counselling, don't you? Kind of like the therapy to make sure that everybody's in like the right sound mind and stuff.
Correct.
That is
exactly
absolutely crazy.
So could the psychologist have cancelled it? Could the psychologist have said, we're not happy to proceed?
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, but they might give like a recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, in our case, they were like, yeah, this is all great. So, but this all went on.
I really want to get Leigha on, because I feel like there's lots that she could be contributing towards this as well. And like from her perspective as well, because everything you're saying obviously is like a mirror, like an immediate reflection on like what she's done. So let me get Leigha on.
I was just thinking as you was talking, like if you like them but then they don't like you, it's like rejection again.
Awkward.
Welcome to the show, and we'll start off with an absolute corker right there. So have you ever rejected a family before?
No, Tess is amazing. She knows what she's doing when she matches people, and I don't know very many surrogates through Tess that have rejected people. She's amazing. She knows her surrogates. She knows what she's doing, and she takes her time to get to know her couples. So, I mean, her job is to make families, and she is very good at it. So.
Oh, wow. I'm in love with you already. I could listen to you. I feel like you're a natural storyteller.
Yeah, that makes me feel really reassured, actually. I think I was very naive when I was, advised maybe to look at surrogacy because, I didn't look at agencies. I was looking at the law in the UK surrounding surrogacy and how that didn't actually protect the intended parents, how those surrogacy agreements weren't enforceable in the UK. So, that for me, because I work in law, if it's not legally binding, I'm not interested. So I was very naive. Whereas what you spoke about the agencies, they sound like a family. That sounds amazing. It's so important to be matched with the right person, to be able to have trust in that person. And, that actually, if I'd have known about this back then, that would have given me hope that would have been an option for me. But obviously I just didn't even entertain that option because I thought the law wasn't on our side. But, there probably are amazing agencies in this country, which there now are, because obviously I've been looking into them myself just because obviously of what was going to happen today. And, the fact that the relationship that you two have is just incredible. It actually is incredible, to be honest.
And it's difficult, like surrogacy, when it's first mentioned, so my issue is a thin endometrium lining. And when our specialist, it was our second specialist, first recommended surrogacy, I remember that day so clearly. And I remember Rana both were like, no way. Like, we are not there yet. But like, it just seems so overwhelming and extreme. And we're like, no, we don't need to do surrogacy. And actually took almost a year for us to then do surrogacy. So after he recommended it, we had another few failed transfers, a few cancelled transfers, and a miscarriage. And then we're like, okay, right, now we'll actually listen to you and do surrogacy. So I think, it is a really big decision, and it can take a while to be mentally ready to do it, I think.
Yeah. Did the distance add any complications for you, Kirsten? As in, did it make the process harder? And for you, Leigha, did the distance make you feel like you had to offer more? As in, did you feel like you needed to make more contact, or was that an added complication at all?
Not at all for me. From the very first Skype call, I told Kirsten this was her pregnancy, and I just felt the need to give her as much information. I tried to keep her in the loop, heartburn and all. Like, I would tell her when I had cravings. I would just send her random messages and tell her, guess what? We've got a headache today. Or, So, no, I from the very beginning with both of my couples, I thought that was really important to make them feel as included in their pregnancy as possible, because it's their pregnancy. Even though I get to, I like to call it extreme babysitting. I get to babysit for 9 months. So
you're making me a surrogate.
I'm like a what?
I was really hard at pregnancy in the end. Like, and the fertility treatment was a lot. Will you have a baby for me?
I wish I could still have babies. I actually was thinking about doing it one more time, and my doctor, he said he'd be there for me, but I'm old. My body didn't get the memo that we should still be young, and so unfortunately my baby days are over. So not very thrilled about that.
Yeah, I'll say that just in terms of the distance, Leigha is just a natural communicator. So I feel like every single day, not a day went by that I didn't get a message or a video message from Leigha. And, whether it was, like a photo of her food going, I've got this food craving, or, every single appointment. I'd always get an update, obviously with Skype in for all the scans and everything. And she's also extremely organised. So she had this massive binder folder. Have you got it there?
Oh,
there it is.
It's
everything, all the information, all the appointment information. So yeah, I and whenever I contacted Leigha, I would hear back within like half an hour at the most. So the distance was never an issue at all. Never an issue. And
so you never felt left out at all, because that was one of the concerns that I had, that I would be, would feel jealous that I wasn't carrying my own child and would have felt left out. But by what you just said, you was experiencing that with her. It was she was carrying your baby. You was, informed of the whole process, and you felt like you was, ultimately, I know it was obviously Leigha that was pregnant, but you were so involved that you were there as one. So that sounds amazing, and again, I think that was one of my concerns when I just didn't entertain that, because I would feel left out, jealous, all of those emotions that you would feel.
So
that's
absolutely
lovely to hear that.
Well, one thing I would keep in mind.
No, you go.
So one thing I would probably keep in mind, just by having multiple surrogate friends, especially through this group as well, because there's a great support group for surrogates on our side, is when you look for a surrogate is, one, if you don't have that connection and you're kind of guessing, don't force it. Just because you finally think you can be matched, it's okay to say, I didn't really have it, because you got to think you're going to have this very intimate relationship with this person for a minimum of a year. And the other thing is, keep in mind, no two surrogacy stories are the same. My first family and Kirsten and Ryan, our journeys were night and day.
Very different.
So my first journey was textbook, practically perfect. Like no problems at all. Kirsten and Ryan, well, we got Spencer. It was worth it. So I would keep that in mind too. If you do go the surrogate route, is keep in mind, one, Kirsten and I, and my first family, we have a relationship because I guess we wanted one. So I would keep that in mind. The other thing is, like I said, from day one, I told them, this is your pregnancy, and I'm going to keep you involved as much as possible. Not all surrogates are that way. Some surrogates are, your appointment's at this time. I'll send you an update. And then you don't hear from them again until their next checkup or any information they need to give you. But they don't, so that's something you might want to keep in mind if you do go the surrogate route, is have that conversation. And if they're wanting to be a surrogate, they should be very open to any request you have as well. If not, it's okay to not have a perfect match right away. So
I'm dying to ask about, obviously you sound like the most amazing human. When you had Spencer, when you gave birth, talk to me about like the emotions, because that must be, do you obviously have this emotional attachment to this little wee baby that you've just, did you just?
So I'm not, my husband likes to point out I'm not normal. I actually am not.
It's so maternal, so I just feel like I just can't imagine that.
Yeah, well, I have my two boys. I have two boys of my own who are 16 and 13. And so, and they are more than enough. But I'm not an attached person. I don't get attached very easily. And so I even remember after my second son was born, I kept thinking to myself, okay, I had a baby. And then I'm like, something's wrong. Who's not? When I had my first son, I was like, oh my gosh, he's mine. He's beautiful. And my second, I was just like, I don't know that I can love as much as I do my first. But then that changes so quick when they're done messing with you and you actually have time to bond with your baby. As far as a surrogate baby, you already go into it in the mindset, they're not yours. They're like, you are attached in a different way. I look at both my surrogate babies more as like my nephews. And so I'm lucky enough to have that relationship. I'm lucky enough to have that relationship. However, I don't know. But there are some surrogates that do struggle a little bit. I mean, it's natural, especially you're having a baby. So, and it comes with all the emotional and hormonal and anything you can name with it. So I really, really think it depends on the mindset. You're healthy. You have to stay in a healthy mindset.
And I guess that's why you do.
I was going to say what was really lovely as well after Spencer's birth is that because we stayed with Leigha and Josh, so we we moved in and we were there 5 weeks all up, and so we were there 2 weeks before Spencer was born, and then Spencer's first 3 weeks, and so that was really lovely as well, just all being together and being a family, and all being there for Spencer every day. So I think that also was a really lovely experience.
Yeah. So can I just question with the obviously the law in the US, so that surrogacy agreement that you entered into, is that legally binding? Is that how it works in the US? Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously in the UK, the surrogate is the legal parent, not the intended parents. They obviously have to apply for a parental order. So how does that work in the US? So
it's all taken care of prior to birth, and then once the child's born, they just do the birth certificate as if Kirsten had him. So,
so you don't have to apply for an order.
I'm sorry?
No, there's a pre-birth order.
There's a pre-birth order.
Like pre-birth. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. So it's basically we have to do it sort of post-birth, an application for a parental order, as opposed to that makes life a lot easier.
Now, from my understanding, in some states, there is a post. I mean, the laws vary state by state. So in some states it's that way, but not very many. So the laws here in Utah are not across the board across the United States for surrogacy. And in some states in the United States, commercial surrogacy is illegal. So.
Right. Yeah, because I think that just adds extra stress and pressure to the intended parents to then have to apply for the parental order post-birth, for the court to approve the expenses that they were reasonable. So I think that's why for me, in this country, would be more stressful. But yeah, to apply pre-birth, I just think that otherwise you're kind of taking excitement out of when your baby's here. And
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. Because of the laws in the UK, I don't know how I would unless I did have that instant connection and bond with someone, I would really struggle with it being a stranger. So, I mean, I've had conversations with my sister potentially being a surrogate for me if it doesn't, because, if I keep not being able to have a baby. And that feels safe because, I mean, she's in my life. She's my best friend. She's going to struggle to get rid of me. But even the legal side around it in the UK just adds an additional layer of, have you not been through enough?
Yeah. Get to that point. Don't we? We do like to just make a big deal out of everything here in the UK. Yeah. Everything's about our face.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that definitely needs looking at in the UK 100%. It just sounds like out of your whole journey, this just sounds like the easiest bit for you. Not easiest, but just went so smoothly. It's like literally like Leah's like your guardian angel. Like she's just come along and just made it all so easy. Absolutely. I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit down there in the corner.
Can I just ask what makes you want to be a surrogate for somebody else? What makes you want to uproot your own life, your family's life, your relationship with your partner and things like that? What initially started you on that route?
I guess I'm just partially crazy. So no. No, it's kind of interesting. So I met my first surrogate in 2008. While my husband and I were, my husband was in the military, and so we were living in Okinawa, Japan. And I met a lady, and she was doing surrogacy, and I thought to myself, like everybody else, how could you give up a baby? Like that was my first initial. I mean, my son, my youngest, was barely a year old, so that initial, how can you give up a baby? Everybody does it. I get that question tons of times. Probably my most common question. And so fast forward to moving back to the United States, I was at work one night and a friend of mine came in and she was kind of distraught. And long story short, a friend of hers had asked her if she would carry his baby as a surrogate. And she's like, I haven't even had babies of my own. I don't know what to tell him. And I just, without thinking, I was like, I'd do it. I mean, pregnancy is easy, labor and delivery is easy, so why not? And so, and she's like,
so laid back. How do you do that?
And so she's like, well, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, I'll go home and talk to my husband. But anyone who knows my husband, he's the most easygoing person. And he pretty much lets me do whatever I want to do because he knows telling me no is pointless. And so it's rare that he puts his foot down. So if he puts his foot down, he means it. But so as I went home and talked to my husband, and he was just like, yeah, if that's what you want to do. So we met with this gentleman and got things rolling. And then we went and talked to a lawyer. And unfortunately, the state of Utah will not let you carry for a single parent. So that kind of just like put the brakes on it. So fast forward to a year later, and just one day it just hit me. I was like, you know what? I wonder if people carry for people. I mean, like you see celebrities and everything like that, but I wonder if people really carry for people they don't know. Because at the time I didn't have anyone I knew that was struggling that I was aware of. Now, as soon as people find out you're a surrogate, the floodgates open and everyone wants to talk to you about their issues. And all of a sudden you're like, I had no idea. So anyway, so I talked to my lawyer again and was just like, hey, is this something people do? And he's like, absolutely. Gave me some information for some different surrogacy agencies. I also talked to another friend of mine who had just got done carrying twins for a couple. And unfortunately for her, her story wasn't so great. Like they had a lot of struggles in their relationship. And so I was very nervous. And I reached out to some agencies. And like Kirsten, when I met with Tess, it was as if we'd known each other for years. And the conversation was just very easy. I didn't feel like bombarded with all the information and everything I had to do like I did with other agencies. They're like, yep, we'll get you matched in a month. All we need you to do is this. It was very like formal with them. And it didn't feel personal. They're like, we'll match you with a nurse. And so you can contact her. We'll give you her number. You can contact her. And if she's not available, you call the nurse's line afterwards. So if there was a problem, you weren't speaking with the same person. And I was a little nervous about that as well. But with Tess, there was times I would call her 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, like, Tess, what about this? What about this? And she never hesitated once. It was very rare that you ever got her voicemail. And if you did,
is that a connection issue? Is anyone else hearing that, or is it me?
Yeah, no, I think it's just.
Oh, I'm back.
Oh,
so
that's good.
I don't
You're
know
back.
so I don't know if that answers your question. There's no really one set thing that it was just one day it clicked, like, yeah, I could do this. Why not?
So
It just sounds like you were saying you'd never thought about it, but once it became a possibility, you was sort of like, actually, that is something I could do and would want to do, and it sort of just naturally happened, maybe.
Yeah. It wasn't something I was seeking out. It wasn't, I realized like some people do it for financial reasons, some people do it for family, some people do it, for whatever their reasons are. But for me, I didn't really necessarily have a set reason. It just one day it was like, why not? I love being pregnant. It's not hard for me, and labor and delivery is pretty easy. And so why not? So
you could do it for financial reasons, though. I didn't think you could legally be paid to be a surrogate for someone, or have I made that up?
You're technically not being paid. You're technically being compensated. And so that's why. And so there's agencies that's the other thing I kind of struggled with some of the agencies. It's how much money can we get for you? And I'm thinking to myself, these families are already going through so much. Like, why are we nickeling and diming them as well? And so
in the UK, obviously it's reasonable expenses, and obviously the court will determine what they believe is reasonable.
Yeah.
So I think one question I do have for you, Leigha, going back to your original, when you looked at that you said that intended parent, that male that wanted to be a single parent. So you would have then used your own eggs, is that correct? Because obviously there's two types of surrogacy. No, you would never use your own eggs if you was, because obviously in the UK, obviously you can have a host surrogate, which obviously you was for Kirsten, or obviously, only one of the intended parents has the biological link. Obviously the surrogate could use their own eggs, but you would never choose to do that.
No. So he already had an egg donor lined up. Okay. And so, yeah. And then my first family, they actually ended up having to use an egg donor as well because of her medical condition and things like that. And so, but no, I would never use my eggs mostly because my eggs aren't ideal. I have several autoimmune disorders. And so I'm not an ideal egg donor, but I am an ideal oven. So
Certainly are.
Yeah.
I'm not much good today. I'm just going, oh, everything she says. I'm like, I'm just in awe. I think it's absolutely, again, I think because when I was first told that we had to have fertility treatment, I was like, what? Like someone else's baby? Like, surely I can make my own babies. I didn't understand it. And I just think this is I just think it's amazing. Like I would actually, I was very ill with my pregnancy. My labour was absolutely horrendous as well. So it really made me laugh. And he was like, yeah, pregnancy's easy, labour's easy. I'm like, is it though?
Yeah.
I just think, but when you think about it, really get that perspective. I just think that, is there anything better that you could do for anyone in the entire world than that? Like that is just the most amazing thing.
If you know something, let me know. I'm looking for my next adventure, I guess.
Anything's going to top that.
What's that?
I don't think I can come up with anything as like that would suit your level of like out there that you would be up for doing. I think it's
I've already been skydiving.
Yeah, but that would be like a doddle. I would jump out of a plane 75 times if it means I didn't have, probably without the harness on, if it meant I didn't have to go through the childbirth. I did.
I mean, that was the thing with Leigha. The whole pregnancy, not once did she complain. And same with all the IVF treatments, because we did 3 transfers, and I honestly never heard her complain once about, the medication, the side effects, the pregnancy, absolutely nothing. And the other absolutely remarkable thing about Leigha is that, so obviously, the first transfer failed. And then the second transfer, heartbreakingly, we had a miscarriage and, we lost our baby at just under 10 weeks. And I think for a lot of women, a lot of surrogates at that point, they would choose not to continue to do surrogacy. And, Leigha was like, no, this is not the end of our story. And, I really want to help you have a family and let's try again. And so I just think, the fact that she, went through a miscarriage, but then decided to still help us is just, absolutely incredible as well.
So I kind of know that already, that when I'm going to ask you now, Leigha, you're going to just be like, I know it's not my pregnancy, because I know you're just this absolute angel of a person, and just, I don't know, you just
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
But if you don't mind, can we just talk a little bit? How did you deal? That must have given you, or must have been crazy emotions when obviously you suffered the miscarriage. That must have been, even to how do you even deliver that? I mean, I know how you did because we've had this conversation already, but that must have been so hard for you.
Yeah, it's crushing, and it's kind of interesting. I like to tell people this because it's really important to our journey. When we Skyped with Kirsten and Ryan, as soon as we got off that Skype call, I looked at my husband and I said, I know I'm supposed to carry for them, but something tells me this is going to be hard. And I didn't understand, like, how come I had that heavy, like, you're supposed to do this, but it's going to be hard. And I didn't realize, like, I thought hard, like, maybe it's going to be harder to say bye to them. Like, you don't understand the level of hard. So when we had that miscarriage, like, the first initial, there's no heartbeat. Like, I kind of was like, oh, she just can't find it. Give her a second, she'll find it. And then I remember looking at up at the monitor and thinking, like, my husband's recording this for Kirsten and Ryan. And like, in my mind, I just wanted to, like, scream. I'm like, stop recording. And he said I never said anything, but in my head, I guess I was just like, stop recording, like something's wrong. And then my husband walks over and she's just like, yeah, let me go get somebody else. I'll be right back. And it hadn't still hit me yet, but like, you know what to look for. After you've had 3 babies, you know what you're looking at. And I could see the sac, but there was no heartbeat. And so they came back in and another nurse looked. And I think that's when it really hit me. Like, and all the emotions of, oh my gosh, I failed them. They've been through so much. And I was going to be the one to fix all that for them. And I failed. And I think, and I've talked to people with miscarriages of their own. And I honestly think having a miscarriage for somebody else is 1,000 times worse than having your own. Because when you have your own miscarriage, it's very intimate for you and your husband. But, and it's very private. But when you have a miscarriage for somebody else, you know, your husband knows, that doctor knows, that family knows, their family knows. Like, it just is a world, a bigger spotlight on you. And so it comes across as a huge failure. And when you're a perfectionist like me, I'm like borderline OCD. Like I love structure, and when you lose that kind of control and you've never experienced that before, my biggest thing is I had the hardest time facing Kirsten and Ryan. I don't know how to explain how almost like disappointing your parents. Yeah, and you just like I think the biggest comfort of the whole thing was that Kirsten had been through it. She'd been through miscarriages. And so I was grateful that was something, unfortunately, but grateful that was something we could share. And that I really thought brought us together that much closer. But yeah, I was devastated. I was so beyond just, wasn't depressed, but I just was like walking around like a zombie. I couldn't function. It just I didn't snap out of it until I finally got the nerve, what 2 days later, a day later, to finally talk to Kirsten. And my husband came in and he's like, they want to talk to you. They're not mad at you. They're not, it's not your fault. And I needed that reassurance that it wasn't my fault. So yeah, that's probably the hardest thing I've ever experienced as a surrogate. So.
And I remember that was so painful. What I found really painful, exactly what Leigh's touching on, is that, you know, we got a few messages from Josh, and he said, you know, Leigha's feels like she's let you down, and she's, she's just so upset. She's almost scared to talk to you guys, but she feels that she's failed you. And we're like, oh my goodness, she's doing this amazing, amazing thing for us. The last thing she's done has, you know, has failed us. Like, you know, miscarriage is out of anyone's control, and especially what had caused this miscarriage as well. It was a subchronic hematoma, which is actually something that cannot be prevented and cannot be treated. So it's just kind of plain bad luck if you get one. But I do remember very clearly that Skype call the next day, and we were all just bawling our eyes out. But, you know, and look, that was one of the hardest parts of international surrogacy, was the miscarriage, because I would have given anything just to have, you know, seen Leigha in person and just hug and cry together and be there for each other and comfort each other. And it was difficult over Skype. That was the only part of the journey that I thought was difficult, being international surrogacy. But yeah, it was a really, really emotional time for all of us.
And I guess in that situation, you're both hurting for yourselves and for your own emotions, but then also hurting for each other, which I guess is testament to the connection that you have with each other, because it's only because of the connection that you have that you would feel that hurt for one another.
Well, that, and you're mourning a loss as well. I mean, we were already invested in that baby. I mean, we were 8 weeks. It was 8 weeks, 2 days when the baby passed, which we went to our 8-week scan, and the baby was healthy. Things were great. They didn't even indicate that there might be a problem, anything. And then we went for our 10. Perfect. And then we went to the 10 weeks. And so we didn't expect it. My husband and I had a whole day planned after that appointment, you know, because where we live, when you go up to these appointments, you make a day of it. And so, yeah, we just, and then the clinic wanted me to either let it naturally pass, it was this whole thing. And I was like, no, like, that was the other thing that was hard for me. I think it registered, and I know this sounds kind of morbid, but for me, it was, I'm walking around with a dead baby in me. Like, oh my gosh, how long has this baby been here? Like, in my mind, this baby's been growing and thriving. And so that was another hard thing. So I called my doctor and I was like, this is what's going on. And he was actually leaving for vacation. And he's like, you know what? I will meet you at the hospital. Meet me at the hospital at this time, and we will take care of it and take care of you. And so, because in my mind, like, it had to be taken care of. Like, I couldn't just wait for it to naturally happen. So,
And I remember so clearly also our obstetrician, Dr. Jensen, had said that when Leigha was going under for the D&C procedure, the anaesthesia, that, you know, he was holding her hand, and he's the only person she knows that was sobbing right up until she passed out from the anaesthesia as well. And I just had that vision in my mind of him holding her hand and her sobbing until she was under.
Yeah, we have an amazing doctor. Yeah. He's just amazing.
He's so good.
Yeah, he doesn't sound like any doctors I've ever met.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to have amazing doctors, you know, throughout my whole life, and he is definitely one of the top ones for sure. We're very lucky to have him, and that he was willing to take me on as a patient, because my initial doctor I had when I first moved here, I basically said, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to be a surrogate. Would you be willing to be my doctor? And he straight up said no. So he didn't want to take on the liability. And so I had to find another doctor. And I'm so grateful my first one said no, because Dr. Jensen's been absolutely amazing through this whole thing. And we have a great relationship. When I went to him back in January and told him I wanted to be a surrogate again, he's like, okay, so let's have this conversation. And so, and I respect his opinion, and he, you know, he's, like I said, he said he'd support me through another one, but he highly recommended I didn't. So, yeah. But yeah, it was hard.
Amazing things though, like you, just by like being a set for two families, like I can't, like the amount of happiness, like when I think about everything we went through and to have Leigha, and the amount of happiness that she brings to so many people's lives, like, sorry, I'm finding this really emotional. I found it really emotional when we did like the part one with just you, Kirsten. I'm really nervous. That's why I didn't put any makeup on today, because I was like, it just didn't pop off all around my face. I know it is. I just, the amount of happy that you've produced just by being like the person that you are, I just think it's amazing. And I presume that from what I've heard, that you're always going to be a part of Spencer's life anyway now, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm so lucky to be part of all their lives. It was Kirsten's mom came with her when we had Spencer, and I absolutely love her mother. Like, me and Sue get along great. We are just chatterboxes together.
You're very alike.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is it worth mentioning as well, 2 years ago today, on the 22nd, is the day that you flew out to meet Leigha.
Yeah, we actually met 2 years ago today. Yeah.
I just remembered that date yesterday, and I was like, oh my gosh, what a crazy coincidence.
Yeah,
but
so
like Josh picked us up from the airport in Utah, and we basically, I think we arrived, it was around midnight to the house, and I was like, I'm going to be composed, and, you know, stepped out of the truck, and the minute I saw Leigha, I was just like, I couldn't stop crying. We were just hugging and crying each other. It was a very emotional meeting. So
and I had this
my husband
huge
Ryan
belly.
Oh yeah.
And so that was the first time you actually met sort of directly, was obviously when he was obviously then due to obviously have Spencer.
I had met,
but my husband had come over. Yeah.
I think I'd seen that on the first show. Obviously your husband had come over, but that's the first time you actually got to meet her in person and was able to obviously like hug, as opposed to like a physical and
to feel Spencer you know, to feel Leah's belly and feel Spencer kick as well was amazing, because like Leigha had kept sending me messages saying like, you know, he's karate kicking today. Like, I think I might have a broken rib. So when I felt her belly, I'm like, oh, I understand now what she means. He's like really strong. So, but even that experience of you know, feeling our baby kick was just, it was incredible.
Yeah.
Your journey is nothing short of incredible, and I just feel like the ending is absolutely so beautiful. Kirsten, would you've got Spencer, what is your plans? Any more babies ever? What
I'm not sure, but you know, COVID's obviously thrown a spanner in the works. So not sure, but you know, either way, we're so grateful to have Spencer in our lives, and you know, as you've touched on, you know, thanks to Leigha, like, you know, Spencer's brought so much happiness, not just to, you know, Ryan and me, but for so many people, and so many people who are part of this journey with us as well. So, you know, my parents and Ryan's parents and my sister and Ryan's brother and sister and all our good friends and Ryan's nan, like, you know, there's just a massive amount of people who were with us every step of the way and who, you know, were heartbroken so many times along the journey as well. And so when Spencer came along, I mean, he's just brought so much happiness into so many people's lives, and you know, that's all because of this wonderful woman here, Leigha. So it's just been absolutely incredible. So, but he'll be 2 in 2 weeks time. So.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see all the birthday pictures.
So, and look, I was just going to also add that, you know, as we've said before as well, obviously we will be in each other's lives forever as well. And we had planned to go over to the US May last year to visit Leigha and Josh and all gone a little holiday together. And then again, COVID, thank you, ruined our holiday plans. But, you know, the moment we can get over there again, we will. And we've already talked about things like, you know, when Spencer's maybe 6, like we'll go over and go to Disneyland together and, you know, like those sorts of things. So we'll obviously be in each other's lives forever as one big extended family. So, and, you know, Spencer can say Leah's name. I think I mentioned on the last episode, there's this beautiful book that Leigha put together, which is like a testament to our journey. And it's a whole journey in photos of Spencer's birth and the hospital tag and everything. And, you know, I frequently take Spencer through that book and he can now point to the pictures and say, Leigha. So, you know, he knows that Leigha is a very special person in our lives and in his life. So,
Leigha, can I just ask, because obviously you seem so chilled out about everything. Do you obviously we say you're amazing and you've done an incredible thing, and Kirsten says you're incredible. You've you know, helped get Spencer here. Do you feel that do you feel like you've done an amazing thing? Or does it just feel like, well, I could and I did, and that's just is what it is?
I don't think it's either. Like I said, the most common question I get is, how can you give up a baby? And for me, I just always tell them I didn't give up anything. I gained 2 families. I absolutely love my surrogate families. Like, and I know that they would do anything for me, just like obviously I would do anything for them. I don't know that I feel like I did something amazing.
You did.
I really feel like I gained a lot. Like, I don't feel like I gave up anything. And so people tell me all the time how great I am or how amazing or an angel. And I just think, you know what, but I really am the blessed one. Like, I am lucky enough that I can do it for somebody and I'm willing to. And 2, I have gained so much. Like, my relationship with Kirsten's like invaluable. Like, you couldn't. And same thing with my first family. Like, I really wouldn't change it for anything. So.
See, but that to me further proves how amazing and selfless you are, that you've done this incredible thing, and to you, you're saying, yeah, but I got this from it, and this was a benefit to me. As like, it's just honest. Not that my opinion matters, but you are,
of course it does,
incredible. Like, from me to you, you are just fantastic. Honestly, it's just unbelievable.
I think it's because as well, like Jade, we have been in the position where the ability to become a mum has been jeopardized or threatened. And we know what that that despair feels like. So when you just get to sit and it sounds incredibly cheesy, but I feel like, and I think I speak for everyone, and we just feel honored to be able to have this conversation with you, because you've just done something so incredible that has just changed like Kirsten's life and so many people's lives. Like, I totally.
The thing for me was, throughout my journey, my fertility journey, and I knew I wanted to be a mum more than anything in this world. However, when faced with the difficulty of treatment and the emotional aspect that had, and the relationship dynamic that had on every aspect of my life, it was questionable at times throughout my journey whether I could do it or not, whether I had the strength to do that. So, and that was for me, knowing how much I wanted that end result. So I think that I can relate to it in the sense that you went through that for somebody else. You know, I questioned whether I could do that for myself. So for you to be able to do that to force, I've got goosebumps, honest to God.
So the ironic thing about the whole thing is when my husband and I first got married, I didn't even want kids. Like, we were going to be a career military family, travel the world, just me and him. Like, I didn't even want kids, but he did. And so I was like, well, okay. So when I went to have children, I went to a doctor, and thank God we didn't listen to him. He basically said, your hormones are so out there, the chances of you ever carrying a baby to term are not good. And so that's when it hits you, like someone's telling you can't do something. And you're like, you want to bet? Like, you challenge that. Okay, try me. Yes, I'm going to do this. Like, you don't get to tell me I'm not going to. Who are you? What do you know? And luckily, I didn't listen to this doctor. And we moved not long after. And I got pregnant with my oldest. And my doctor said, we'll just monitor you. And it's no different than surrogacy. They just monitor you. And, you know, you just do what you got to do. And then my second son, we actually tried for. And I thought, okay, maybe this doctor was right. Like, maybe I won't get pregnant. Maybe I should just be grateful, one and done. And I just so happened to have a good doctor, and he told me what I needed to do. I got pregnant with my second, and then I had to do the progesterone shots with my second. And again, no different than surrogacy. You do all your IVF and medication, so it was no different. So it worked out. Surrogacy was no different than what my body needed. So, and that's another selfish reason I do surrogacy is because of my autoimmune disorders. For some reason, when I'm pregnant, it's almost like they're in remission. And so I feel great. I have tons of energy and just feel amazing. And so it's a little ironic, but that's where I could relate with moms looking for surrogates, because I get what it feels like to be told, no, you can't have kids. And it's like, no, you watch me. And you know what? I'm not only going to have kids for myself. I'm going to hand out some. You get a baby. You get a baby, you know? So.
Only boys. Only boys. Leigha only carries boys.
Yeah, only boys.
Oh, wow.
Only boys.
Only boys. So if you want a boy, and back in my prime, I could have been handing out boys. So.
Did you ever wonder that potentially, when obviously the miscarriage happened, did you know the sex of the baby? Could it have been a girl maybe?
I thought at first, I was like, oh, you watch. That was the one time I got to carry a girl. You watch. But we actually found out it was a little boy as well. So, yeah.
My miscarriage was a girl, but yeah.
Yep. Nope. I don't carry girls, evidently.
Nope. Only boys.
Only boys.
Honestly, girls, I am so grateful for you guys jumping on today. It was amazing. Like, I feel like I just need to go and sit and have a little minute because it was so good. I've learned so much. Like, I already felt like I'd learned loads from the part one of the surrogacy, and I just feel, I don't know, I kind of feel like I want to be
I've barely spoken because I've just been trying to take it all in. I've just been
really quiet. Yeah,
there's a lot.
Quiet.
We need to get on Tess. I just want to meet Tess now.
Yeah.
She would be happy. Yeah, she'd be happy to come on.
What an incredible person to know.
Yeah, that'd be actually really good. Part 3. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Tess is amazing.
There's going to be so many episodes here. I love it. We have our own series.
Yeah,
if anyone watching has any questions, obviously, please message me anytime, and I'm sure it's the same with Leigha.
I'll add your Instagram handle in the bio. Leigha, is there anything, Kirsten, is there anything any of you want to say while we wrap up?
No, I'm just so grateful to be a surrogate and to have Spencer and AJ in my life. Like, it's just like having your own children. You know, you can't imagine your life without them, and so I can't imagine my life without them. And I'm so grateful for it. And surrogacy there's a lot to it. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, and it's got its tough times just like anything else. But if you stick with it, it's so worth it, especially if you're with the right people. So, and I just have to give big props to my husband. Like, he is beyond amazing.
True.
He really is. Like, there were times that I would just like especially after the miscarriage, I just kind of shut down, and he stepped up and he just took everything, kept Kirsten and Ryan in the loop, worked with the pathologist to get all the stuff needed for the baby. And it just, I definitely have to, if you have a great support system, I think that makes a world of difference. And my husband definitely was that. He would get up hour before work and do all my injections for me. Like he's amazing. So I definitely have to give him props as well. So your family, if you have a great support system, I think, like I said, makes all the difference.
You guys literally sound like the most amazing team. I just thank you so much for coming on, and yeah, I guess that's everything. That was amazing. Thank you for giving up.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much, girls. I'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I'm still sorry. I think I'm still stuck. I think I've got Leah still trapped in here with us. Sorry, darling.
No, it's all good.
Thank you so much. Bye. Wow, that was absolutely incredible. I feel so emotional. I feel like I kind of need a little bit of a nap now as well. But yeah, Katie, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed
having me.
And you are back not next week, the week after, aren't you?
Yeah, that's correct. The 6th. Yep, Tuesday the 6th of July.
Amazing. Wow, thank you very much. Thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. We've got some exciting stuff coming up for next week. I can't put my teeth in. I feel so emotional. I feel like I need to have a meditator. That was it not just overwhelming? Like, I cried.
Jade, just say thank you, goodbye.
Yeah. Keep an eye on the Instagram page for next week's guest speakers. Thank you and goodbye.